Guardians of the Nova. Many decades after the fall of Helicium, the Nova continued living in Pantheon, whose borders were safeguarded by the protective shield generated by the four Nova relics. Two children, named Kyle and Velderoth, became friends with a girl named Tyr, who had been shunned by the Nova for having been born without magic or a tail. Together, they became the Helicium Force and trained every day in order to become strong enough to take back their capital. Velderoth and Kyle soon became knights, bringing them one step closer to realizing their dream. One day, Kyle sensed that something was wrong at the East Sanctum while training. There the three encountered strange priests whom they had never seen before approaching the relic. Velderoth decided to get reinforcements, he missed a word, and told Kyle and Tyr to keep an eye on the priests, though he warned them not to play hero. While overhearing the priests, Tyr quickly realized that they were planning to steal the relic and weaken the protective shield. Before the priests could take the relic, Tyr charged ahead and grabbed it first, immediately falling unconscious upon touching it. As the priests advanced on Tyr, Kyle suddenly felt a fiery power within himself awakened as Kaiser. He launched a devastating attack upon the priests in his Kaiser form, before falling unconscious himself. As the remaining priests approached Kyle in order to finish him off, an unconscious Tyr tapped into the power of the relic, inadvertently allowing her to defeat them. By then, Velderoth had brought reinforcements, all of whom witnessed Kyle's awakening and took the two children back to Pantheon. Tyr woke up in the infirmary first and spoke with the knight, Cartilian, and the high priestess, Fennel, who told her that she had been cursed by the relic. Upon learning that it was stuck to her arm, Tyr realized that the protective shield had been permanently weakened because of her actions. Upset by the news, she ran off as a priest named Kylan went after her. He attempted to console her by noting how auspicious it was that the relic, which had never reacted to any other priest, clung so tightly to her. Author's note: it's because none of the priests were below the age of 14. You will see why I say this later on. However, Tyr merely cried that she had never asked for it to happen and ran off to the Helicium Force hideout. Soon after, Kyle woke up in the infirmary and learned from Fennel and Cartilian that he had awoken as the next Kaiser. As such, he had a grand destiny to live up to as the guardian of the Nova. Kaiser then asked where Tyr had gone, to which they explained that Tyr had run off after learning that she had been cursed by the relic. As Kyle had gone after her, Kaiser decided to let him handle it, and instead began asking Fennel about his new role. Oh, it's Kylan. Sorry, I read that as Kyle. Fennel told him that the destiny of Kaiser depended on the time that he was born into. Given the dire situation that the Nova found themselves in, she warned Kaiser that his destiny was sure to be one of the most burdensome of all. As Jaren Darmor had conquered nearly all of Grandis, the Nova were the only ones left who could hope to fight against him. Though Darmor was the transcendent of life, Fennel hoped that a strong alliance of warriors backed by the power of other transcendents could help win the war, adding that it was his duty as Kaiser to see it through. She explained that the previous Kaiser had sacrificed himself to defeat Magnus and his army, and the Kaiserium, a legendary sword of Kaiser, had also disappeared with the previous Kaiser. Regarding the history of Grandis, Fennel told him about the Flora Civil War, of which Jaren Darmor had been one of its strongest opponents. Firmly believing in peace, Fennel believed that Darmor's powerful will had helped him awaken as the transcendent of life, but his awakening had left him mentally troubled, as he believed that peace was impossible in life as it was, and so he had vowed to wipe out all life and recreate it as he saw fit. Author's note: I'm not sure whether this has been retconned or if the Novas are just misinformed about Darmor, since he was the one responsible for inciting the Flora Civil War in the first place. It's also possible that we don't know the whole story, and that both of these versions of Darmor are somewhat true. I'm certain that the answer lies in the last part of what Fennel said. Given that Darmor's goal to destroy life and recreate it is almost identical to what the Black Mage wants to do, it's possible that he's rebelling against the Overseers, or that he's being forced to obey them, like the previous Aeona, who similarly wiped out 7 races of Grandis. After speaking with Fennel, Kaiser decided to test his new powers and spend some time training. He then decided to check up on Tyr and went to ask Velderoth if he knew where she was. After learning that she was likely at the hideout, he went to see her and asked how she was doing. Though Tyr appeared happy, Kaiser could clearly tell that she had been crying. He learned that she was feeling guilty about having weakened the protective shield, though she told him not to worry about it, as she didn't want to ruin anything else. After telling Kaiser that she wanted some time alone, Tyr decided to return to the East Sanctum in order to see whether returning the relic to its original location would release it from her arm. On her way there, a voice called from inside the relic and introduced itself as Escalade, who offered to grant his powers to Tyr through a contract. At the East Sanctum, he told her to look for a ring near the pedestal where the relic used to be. After she put it on, she underwent a transformation that turned her into a pretty pink superhero with an unnecessarily short skirt, and Escalade explained that her magical transformation was necessary for her powers to reach maximum effect. Though she was upset at Escalade's perverted behavior, she begrudgingly accepted the arrangement, as it would grant her the powers that she had always desired. Just then, nefarious priests arrived and saw that the relic was attached to Tyr's arm. Though they attempted to take it, Tyr was easily able to defeat them with her new powers. Escalade then introduced himself as Escalade Lorang, a great Nova warrior. Author's note: ancient Nova like Escalade were pure dragons and eventually evolved into human-dragon hybrids. However, given the fact that the Black Nova from the era of the ancient gods were also hybrids, I have to wonder when exactly that evolution took place, as the window of time during which it could have occurred is significantly smaller, since the ancient gods existed close to the beginning of the universe itself. Escalade also told her that he would soon need essence stones to keep fueling his power, reminding her to keep her identity secret. He told Tyr that her hero name would be Angelic Buster. Elsewhere, Kaiser decided to cheer Tyr up by collecting sparkling rocks, which she used to love when they were kids. After collecting a sparkling rock from the limestone takas, he suddenly realized that he should instead give her flowers, as he believed that girls liked flowers. He collected some from the alert grobblers and returned to the Helicium hideout, where he gave them to Tyr. Tyr thanked him, but mentioned that she would have liked sparkling rocks instead. After Tyr left, Velderoth arrived and suggested that they have a hunting match. They competed to collect Lalung tails, which Kaiser easily managed to win with his new powers. Having been beaten by Kyle for the first time, Velderoth's pride was hurt, and he sarcastically claimed that he should have known better than to challenge the great and powerful Kaiser before storming off. Unsure of what Velderoth's problem was, Kaiser decided that he ought to help the Nova and went to see Kylan of the Great Temple. Kylan asked him to collect alert gobbler stocks in order to restock his medical supplies. After collecting them, Kaiser went to see Cartilian, or Cartalion, who asked him to defeat Kalung monsters in order to help control their numbers. Meanwhile, Tyr decided to see Cartalion in order to find something heroic to do. Cartalion was enamored by Angelic Buster's lovely appearance and asked her to defeat the weak, sleepy grobblers around Pantheon, telling her that he didn't want her to get hurt. Author's note: I really hate how all the adults in Angelic Buster's storyline keep sexualizing her when they can clearly see that she's a child. Tyr easily defeated the grobblers and told Cartalion that she wanted a challenge. Cartalion was impressed by her skills and promised to let her know once he had more work for her. After she left, Tyr realized that with her new powers, She could now gather sparkling rocks by herself. On her way into the forest, she ran into Velderoth, who was stunned by her beauty. She asked if there was anything that she could help him with, to which he stammered that she could take care of the limestone takas. While hunting them, Tyr was pleased to find a shining rock, which she kept for herself. After completing Velderoth's mission, she ran into Selene, who asked her to bring food to Kylan, who had been skipping meals because of his work. Selene then told Tyr that her cooking supplies had been disappearing and asked her to collect some alert gobbler stalks in order to restock the missing ingredients. While hunting them, Escalade told her to find elite gobbler dewdrop goo, which would make her voice more angelic. Though Tyr hated how sticky it felt down her throat, the goo successfully made her voice more melodic. Author's note: the fact that not only did someone make this innuendo and think that it was a good idea, but also that somebody else approved this out of their own free will, makes me want to set Nexon Korean headquarters on fire. Author's note. Oh, Jesus. After bringing the stocks to Selene, she asked Tyr to tell Cartalion that her ingredients were disappearing. There's a lot of author's notes in here. Cartalion promised that he would look into it and told her that Kylan needed help in the Great Temple. Kylan asked her to collect Lalung horns for his research, after which she helped Fennel grow glow stones as catalysts for her spells. After bringing her the stones, Fennel asked whether she was under the protection of an ancient Nova, as she felt an ancient presence ever since meeting her. As Tyr stammered nervously, Fennel smiled and apologized if it was meant to be a secret. She told Tyr that she believed that an ancient Nova spirit dwelled within the relic that she had carried, but only the chosen could access its power. She speculated that Tyr was favored by the Nova spirit and added that she had always known that Tyr was special. Author's note: this basically confirms that Fennel knows about Angelic Buster's true identity. It's weird that Cartalion and Kylan don't suspect anything when they can clearly see the relic on her arm, but they're probably too busy fawning over her underage appearance to notice. After she sent Tyr to see Cartalion, Escalade told her that he was upset that Fennel had learned about her identity, but Tyr assured him that Fennel was like a grandmother to her, and so she wouldn't misuse the knowledge. She then met with Cartalion, who explained that the grumpy grobbler population had exploded, causing large amounts of pollen to cluster in their storehouses. As Tyr left to take care of them, Kaiser returned from his mission to defeat Kalung monsters and spoke with Cartalion, who asked him whether he had heard of Angelic Buster and explained that she was a cute new superheroine helping the Nova. He then apologized for going off topic and told Kaiser that, that with his new position, he ought to set his sights higher than simply doing trivial chores, and told him to ask Fennel for more serious work. Fennel immediately realized that Cartalion wanted her to ask Kaiser to lead the knights. However, she told Kyle that Kaiser was never an all-powerful being immediately after awakening. She explained that she had known 3 Kaisers in her lifetime, and that all of them had started out as Kyle had, adding that both he and Tyr were fast approaching their destinies. When Kaiser asked what she meant by Tyr's destiny, Fennel explained that Tyr had gone to seek her fortune, and that she had seemed inspired. She told him that whereas Kaiser sought to fulfill the people's expectations, Tyr sought to prove herself in her own way, though she added that neither was the true path for either of them. After speaking with Fennel, Kaiser sensed something strange and went to investigate. He soon encountered nefarious priests who were planning on eliminating him. Kaiser began fighting them off and forced them to retreat. Though he chased after them, the priests managed to escape. He then told Cartalion what had happened, but Cartalion told him that he needed proof of the priests' treachery before he could safely turn on them, and asked Kaiser to check on the other Sanctums. As Kaiser headed to warn Anor in the North Sanctum, Tyr began returning from her mission when Escalade sensed nefarious priests nearby. After Tyr defeated them, she discovered that the priests had stolen Selene's missing ingredients. She immediately reported the incident to Cartalion, who told her that Kaiser had also reported strange behavior from the priests, and explained that he didn't have enough evidence to turn against them yet. However, he reassured her that he would have scouts investigate, and added that as the East Sanctum had recently been attacked, she ought to investigate the North Sanctum, where he had recently dispatched Kaiser. At the North Sanctum, Kaiser warned Honor that the priests might attack the Sanctum. Honor thanked him for the information and asked him to bring back grumpy grobbler stalks, since he had already come all this way. After Kaiser left to gather them, Tyr arrived at the North Sanctum and spoke to Honor, who began to shamelessly flirt with her and asked her to collect Kaloon wings for him as a favor. Soon after she left, Kaiser brought back the grumpy grobbler stalks. Honor thanked him and explained that Angelic Buster had dropped by and that she had also warned him about a possible attack. Kaiser began to grow frustrated that Angelic Buster kept interfering with his duties, but Honor told him to relax and explained that he had asked for her help, adding that he had hoped that she would stick around. With that, Honor told him to check on the South Sanctum. After Kaiser left, Tyr returned with the Kaloon wings. Honor thanked her and explained that between her and Kaiser, all of his errands had been completed. He then told her that Kaiser had gone to the South Sanctum and suggested that she follow him. At the South Sanctum, Kaiser warned Christina to be on guard for a possible attack. Christina immediately began to flirt with Kaiser and told him that she needed a brave hero to defend her. Author's note: between Honor thirsting for Tyr and Christina thirsting for Kyle, it's a miracle that Chris Hansen hasn't showed up base here, hasn't set up base here. Oh my god. She then asked him to defeat Amethyst Takas, which were attacking passing travelers. After he returned, Christina told him that she would be alright and asked him to check on the West Sanctum. Just as Kaiser was about to leave, he felt a dark energy near the outskirts of the South Sanctum and went to investigate. There he encountered a horde of nefarious priests who had come to steal the South Sanctum's relic. After he defeated them all, Christina thanked him and sent him back to Pantheon in order to let Cartalion know. Just then, Tyr arrived and found another wave of priests arriving at the South Sanctum. After defeating them, she learned from Christina that Kaiser had fought the first wave, and that he had gone to warn Cartalion. Tyr immediately headed to the West Sanctum, as she knew that Ishmael, who was guarding the relic, was as hopeless as she was without Escalade's powers. Author's note: interestingly, we're never introduced to Ishmael in the game. I have a crack theory that he's going to be the Nova Magician class, but I'm putting it down on paper here so I can feel superior to everyone if it turns out that I'm somehow right. That's actually a pretty good idea. In Pantheon, Cartalion told Kaiser that he needed to reinforce reinforce Ishmael because of how weak he was, just as Tyr had realized. At the West Sanctum, both Kaiser and Tyr arrived to find that not only was it completely deserted, but the relic was also missing. Kaiser used his ability to sense auras in order to track down the nefarious priests, but after defeating them, the priests told him that they didn't know anything about the relic. As Kaiser headed back to Pantheon, Escalade sensed the nefarious priest's base was in the East Pantheon forest and told Tyr to head over there. Meanwhile, Kaiser returned to Cartalion, who sent a medical team to the West Sanctum. He told Kaiser that they had a crisis on their hands and asked him to let Fennel know that 2 of the 4 relics were missing. Fennel told Kaiser that she would discuss the matter with the priests. After speaking with them, she told Kaiser that they had determined that it would be impossible to maintain the protective shield with only half the relics, and that once it failed, Darmor's armies would be able to invade Pantheon. She explained that even if they were able to reclaim the relic, it would take time for it to recharge the protective shield, and as such, she told him that reclaiming the relic as soon as possible was paramount. Kaiser returned to Cartalion, who told him that scouts had found the location of the nefarious priest's base. Kaiser rushed over and arrived at the same time as Tyr. Together, they fought through the defenses and encountered the priest's leader speaking to a hologram of Magnus. Their leader reported that 2 of the relics had been lost, with one of them being in their possession. Magnus was pleased and told him that he would prepare for his assault on Pantheon. After the call ended, Kaiser and Tyr attacked the priest's leader and defeated him before reclaiming the relic. On their way back, Tyr also recovered the stores of Selene's missing ingredients, which had been stolen by the priests. They successfully returned to Cartalion and gave him the relic, as well as the news of Magnus's imminent assault. Author's note: this portion of the storyline in the last paragraph is identical in both Kaiser's and Angelic Buster's storyline, but for some reason it's never mentioned that they encounter each other while completing the quest, making it seem as though only one person arrived at the base and did all the work. Since I can't really pick one person and say that they canonically did it, I'm going to assume that they both worked together to finish these quests, even though there's no interaction between them. As Cartalion mobilized knights to prepare for Magnus's attack, he asked Kaiser to check the eastern border to scout for enemy activity, as it was the closest point to Helicium. There, Kaiser encountered and defeated a wave of invading specters. He reported the news to Cartalion, who was shocked that Magnus had launched his attacks so soon. He asked Kaiser to buy them some time to get their defenses ready, and so Kaiser returned to the battlefront and engaged the Spectre army. Cartalion soon learned that the Spectres were attacking the northern border. He contacted Tyr and asked her to hold the northern border until Kaiser and the knights arrived. While Tyr fought the Spectres, Kaiser and the other knights returned from the eastern border and were quickly redirected to reinforce Tyr in the north by Cartalion, who asked them to hold the line until the protective shield was fully recharged. With the enemy numbers on the eastern border thinning, Cartalion asked Tyr to sweep up all the remaining Spectres there. After a fierce struggle, Kaiser and Tyr managed to repel the army, even before the protective shield came up. Cartalion was surprised at how weak Magnus's army was, but he was nevertheless pleased that the attack was finally over. However, Escalade was dubious and suspected that the enemy's assault was a feint to draw their attention away from Magnus's true plans. He told Tyr to check the western border, where she found that the Spectres were preparing a summoning ritual. Tyr immediately let Cartalion know what was happening, but just as Cartalion told her that he would come up with a plan, news reached him that a massive invasion army had appeared at both the northern and southern borders. Cartalion summoned Kaiser and told him that if the summoning ritual were to continue, Magnus's entire army would be teleported straight into Pantheon. While he sent Kaiser to stop the ritual, he asked Tyr to fight off the Spectres at the northern border. After Kaiser successfully stopped the ritual, Cartalion thanked him profusely and asked him to check with Fennel on the status of the protective shield. With the northern forces thinning, he also redirected Tyr to defend the south until the protective shield came back up. As she rushed to the southern border, Fennel asked Kaiser to buy them time to power up the shield by reinforcing Tyr and the other knights in the south. Kaiser and Tyr both fought to their limit, but even they were ultimately overpowered by the Spectres. Just as they faltered, the protective shield was finally restored, immediately vaporizing all Spectres inside Pantheon. After the battle was over, Kaiser realized that the protective shield was a powerful weapon against the Spectres and formulated a plan to lure the entire Spectre army inside their borders, where they would then reactivate the protective shield and wipe out all of Magnus's forces at once. He proposed his plans to Fennel, who supported his idea, despite knowing the risks that it posed. After the plan was approved, Kylan gave Kaiser the magic amplifier device used to activate the shield and asked him to bring it to Cartalion. Author's note: the magic amplifier isn't used exclusively for powering the shield. True to its name, it just amplifies sources of magic in order to enhance their powers. Kylan also mentions that the device is powered by the magic from the pebbles in Pantheon. Cartalion told Kaiser that Captain Piston would take the amplifier and drop it near the Spectre's summoning ritual square in order to bait them into using the amplifier to power their summoning ritual, which would bring the entire army to Pantheon, at which point they would reactivate the protective shield and wipe them all out at once. He then summoned Tyr and asked her to help them lay the trap at the southern border. As Magnus's entire army was summoned to Pantheon, Tyr lured them in through the southern border, where nearly all of the specters were vaporized upon the protective shields reactivating. Having decimated Magnus's forces, Artalion excitedly told Kaiser and Tyr that they finally had an opportunity to retake Helicium. He then asked the pair to defeat the stronger specters still inside the city, whose strength allowed them to resist the protective shield's magic. After Kaiser and Tyr cleaned up the remaining specters, they were shocked to find Magnus inside the protective shield's radius. Magnus praised Kaiser for his cunning plan, just as Velderoth arrived. Kaiser told Magnus that he had no power inside the protective shield and claimed that it was over. However, Magnus simply laughed and told Kaiser that he was nothing compared to his predecessors. As the three moved to attack, Magnus easily managed to defeat them, even while weakened by the protective shield's magic. Just then, Cartalion arrived and immediately summoned reinforcements to capture Magnus. However, Magnus told Cartalion that he wasn't in the mood for another fight and quickly retreated. After Cartalion took the three back to Pantheon, he told them how terrifying it was to witness Magnus's immense power and noted that Magnus was in possession of a corrupted Kaiserium. Kaiser was just as shaken and wondered how he could ever hope to take back Helicium after witnessing Magnus's power. He then returned to the Helicium hideout in order to check on Velderoth, who had been wounded by Magnus. There he encountered Tyr consoling Velderoth, who was shaking with fear. Upon seeing Kaiser, Velderoth began mocking him for losing to Magnus, claiming that Kyle wasn't a hero like the Nova believed. He also added that Kyle had only beaten him in their hunting match because of his new powers, and that Kyle had always been weaker than him before awakening. He bitterly wondered why Kyle had been chosen as the next Kaiser, believing that it should have been himself instead because of his superior strength, adding that Kyle had been handed out free power that he didn't deserve. As Kaiser began to retort, Tyr told him to leave Velderoth alone. Kaiser then asked if she was all right, as she had several bruises on her, but Tyr lied and explained that she had merely tripped. As the two began to joke around together, Velderoth became even more furious at their casual attitudes and decided that he was leaving the Helicium Protector Vanguard, claiming that it had been a worthless group in the end. Believing that he had no future in Pantheon, he stormed off and left the city in search of power. Sometime later, Beldar summoned Kaiser and told him that the Helicium Council had approved of the plan to advance on Tyrant's Castle. He explained that it would be Kaiser's responsibility to gather allies for the invasion, because while Magnus might be a conquerable foe, Darmor was certainly not. The council had ordered Kaiser and Angelic Buster to travel through the interdimensional portal in the Great Temple in order to find allies in the unknown world, though he added that they would first need to break the seal on the portal. Kaiser went to see Fennel, who told him that though he had been ordered to break the seal, he shouldn't let the war-hungry council push him into hasty action. When Kaiser asked where the interdimensional portal came from, Fennel explained that it had been formed when Darmor had stolen Chronica's powers, which had caused a tear in the fabric of space-time. Fearing that Darmor or some other threat could use this portal to invade, the Nova had chosen to seal the power for their own safety. Kaiser then asked her to tell him about Darmor and Chronica, and so Fennel explained that Darmor was the prince of the High Flora, and that he had been a strong opponent of the Flora Civil War. Believing that carnage had cheapened life. When the High Flora had destroyed themselves, he had survived the disaster and had awakened as the Transcendent of Life. Having gone mad with grief, He sought to destroy all living beings and remake life as he saw fit. Author's note. As I mentioned before, either this may have been retconned or that the Nova had bad intel, since Darmor was the one who started the war in the first place. Additionally, it was the verdant flora who had been wiped out, not the high flora, although the high flora certainly sustained heavy casualties. Fennel also explained that Chronica was the transcendent of time, though little was known about them. Darmor had confronted Chronica at their sanctuary and had insisted that they help Darmor wipe out all life. However, when Chronica had refused, Darmor had sealed them away and stolen their powers. Author's note. Chronica is referred to with both male and female pronouns in the very same conversation. I am going to continue referring to Chronica with gender-neutral pronouns until we meet them. Fennel added that alongside Darmor and Chronica, Aona was the Transcendent of Light, although no one in Grandis knew about her more than the fact that she existed. Kaiser asked her to explain who the Transcendents were, and so Fennel told him that the Transcendents were representatives of the three Overseers, the beings who had created the worlds. Author's note. The Overseers are called the Paragons in this conversation, which might be a translation error. She explained that not all Transcendents were the same, as some were created immortal, whereas others were mortal and reincarnated. After having answered Kaiser's questions, Fennel sent him to Kylan in order to help him open the interdimensional portal. Kylan told Kaiser that he had heard rumors that Angelic Buster was joining them, and that he was worried for her safety. Kaiser then collected Onyx Stonegar magic pebbles in order to break the seal, as well as Gravy Stonegar magic pebbles to reactivate the interdimensional portal. While he worked on collecting the necessary materials, Beldar contacted Angelic Buster and told her that she had been tasked with accompanying Kaiser to the New World. When Tyr asked him about the interdimensional portal, Beldar explained how the portal had been created when Darmor had stolen Chronica's powers. Author's note. Chronica is referred to with only female pronouns here. It's highly likely at this point that Chronica is female, but I'd like it if they were male, just because we only have 2 male Transcendents so far, and both of them are the villains. As Tyr was confused about the concept of the Transcendents, Beldar told her about the 3 Transcendents of Grandis, and that Chronica and Aona were all but gone from their world. Tyr then asked how Grandis hadn't yet been destroyed if Darmor had such formidable power. Beldar agreed, and explained that it also puzzled the Nova scholars, though he suspected that a Transcendent stealing another's power would inflict weakness upon them, conjecturing that it was a safeguard created by the Overseers. Tyr was once again confused by the strange terms, and so an annoyed Beldar explained how the primordial god had created the 3 Overseers of light, life, and time in order to watch over the transcendence of the 3 worlds. Having answered all of Tyr's questions, he told her to remain on standby while Kaiser reactivated the interdimensional portal. While waiting, Escalade told her that he had found the last remnants of the nefarious priests in the Orange Forest. Tyr then infiltrated their base and learned that not only had Magnus abandoned the priests, but he was also refusing to ask Darmor for reinforcements. Tyr then recovered more of Celine's ingredients and returned them to her before reporting what she had learned to Cartalion. Meanwhile, Kaiser finished gathering the materials, which Kylan then used to reactivate the interdimensional portal. While Kaiser was being summoned by Cartalion, Tyr decided to go on ahead and entered the portal on her own. Cartalion then told Kaiser that the hope of the Novas rested upon him to find a transcendent in the unknown world and to convince them to aid the Nova. He also asked Kaiser to bring back unique materials from the other world in order to aid Kylan with his research. Kaiser then entered the interdimensional portal and arrived in Maple World. Around the same time that Kaiser and Angelic Buster began exploring Maple World, the interdimensional portal on Maple World reappeared, as the weakened seal on the Black Mage had allowed the power of time to seep through, once again creating the warp in space-time. As they investigated the new world, Kaiser and Angelic Buster also sent regular reports to Pantheon. informing them about the different cultures, people, and politics of Maple World. Author's note: the fact that both of the portals become active almost simultaneously is a coincidence that can't really be explained other than plot reasons. We know that Kaiser and Angelic Buster sent regular reports to Pantheon because of Xenon's storyline, but we don't know what they specifically wrote about. And so I just filled in some conjecture about what I would assume they would say.